Welcome to Life Beyond Abortion, the podcast where we delve into the untold stories and experiences surrounding abortion. Stories often missing from everyday conversations, media reports, and even other podcast interviews. I'm your host, Melissa Ohden, the founder and CEO of the Abortion Survivors Network. As the author of You Carried Me, A Daughter's Memoir, and Abortion Survivors Break Their Silence, I've had the privilege of hearing the most powerful stories from some of the most resilient and courageous individuals. These stories and these people have profoundly transformed my life, and I believe they have the power to transform yours as well. Together, we will amplify these voices, share the truths that they illuminate, and challenge our culture to recognize what life is truly like beyond abortion. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Life Beyond Abortion. Everyone has a story. And I love that I get the opportunity to highlight so many different stories on this podcast. Today, I am joined by an author, a woman who is resilient, and I am honored to have in my life, Solé Wright. Solé, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Melissa.
Everybody does have a story. And, I guess that's where I just want to start with you. You, like every person, has layers of story. So what is your life beyond abortion story? And maybe that's a snapshot in time. What did you once know about yourself or your story? And maybe when did you have additional layers added to that?
My life beyond abortion story, it started when I was actually quite young. I was trying to remember today how old I was, and it's difficult to remember certain ages. I had to have been in elementary school when I first heard that I wasn't wanted and my mother tried to abort me. And I was too young to understand what abortion meant, but I definitely knew what you weren't wanted meant. And it was very painful, but even before that, there was something within me that didn't feel right. I always had this dead inside feeling throughout my life, and I could not understand what it was. And I remember once watching a movie called October Baby, the story of Gianna Jensen. I hope I said her name right. And Jessen, yes. And I remember there were certain parts of that film that triggered me in a way that I've never been triggered before. And I remember shutting down because I was watching that movie with my daughter and totally disassociating. I felt like I had to put a strong front, but I was definitely jarred during that film. And it was something that I didn't want to go back to. I knew something was there, but I wasn't quite sure. And it wasn't until about 5 years ago that I was writing my first book, which is not the book that I actually published.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that today.
Yeah, and I kept on hitting a wall, and that seemed to be the theme of my life. I would start something and then get stuck, and I kept on hitting a wall and hitting a wall. And I had was having some health issues. I'm going all over the place.
No, I'm following you. This is what stories are like, right? We have an experience, and then life keeps happening, and then something happens, and we're like, oh, something bumped into that, and then we keep going.
It's so true. I think it just builds on each other, because I truly believe at the root of it all, God wants to see us healed and whole, right? So I developed an autoimmune disease, and I have this incredible doctor. She is very intuitive, and she asked, when she finally figured out what was going on, she asked, have you had childhood trauma? And I answered, yes, haven't we all? Really, haven't we all had childhood trauma to one degree or another? And she said that she has seen in her practice that a lot of times when women my age develop autoimmune disease, it's triggered due to unresolved childhood trauma. Now, from my 30s on, I had other traumas in my life growing on, and I felt like I had resolved those, and I felt like I had not arrived, but I was at a good place. So she referred me to my counselor who does EMDR, and it was amazing. It was so powerful. So naturally, I thought just touch on the normal childhood issues that I had, and we realized that I had healed and had overcome a lot of those. And then I was playing around with that. Wow, so maybe the stuck feeling, could it be from when my mother tried to abort me? She tried numerous times to abort me. And this was before abortion was legal, so there were some illegal at home attempts. And I decided to give it a shot to explore it. And I went online and I thought, well, before I talk to the counselor about it, I want to see if there's people like me in this world. And that's when I found the Abortion Survivors Network, and it blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind to find when I found the community and hearing testimonies, and I thought, wow, they get me. This was a secret I kept because I didn't even know how to unpack it. I didn't even know, it just, the feeling seems so, like, how do you explain to someone that you feel dead inside?
Right. Yeah, it is a very, even though I think people can relate to that emotion, right? They can't understand the place from which it comes. And I want to go back there from it, if you don't mind, Soleil. I mean, first of all, I want to say, first of all, thank you for being you and for sharing what you have already, because I know that it's not easy. And I distinctly remember you getting in the van when we were heading to a retreat, right? And this was all pretty new for you. And I just remember talking with you and then watching you as you were trying to process all of this sort of in real time. And I think that's one of those things that, again, people may not be able to relate to our experiences, but I think we all know what it's like when we've grappled with something and we sort of touch it, and we know that when you touch it, right, it's a deep pain, and so we figure out how to put it on a shelf and know that it's there, but we go on with our lives, and also we still know it's running in the background, right? It's sort of like this background noise. You always know that it's there. And you know that even though you want to sort of touch it, and you know that you need to in order to get better physically and emotionally and mentally, it's also a bit overwhelming, right? It's like overstimulation as you're taking it off the shelf, and then you're meeting other people who have the same piece. So even though it's so beautiful, it is it's a bit exhausting.
I agree, Melissa, because a lot of things came at me. So I had a huge breakthrough in counseling, which the same day that I had the breakthrough, I had to get tested. I had to draw blood every month for my autoimmune disease. In this breakthrough, I felt within my spirit that you're healed. I had my blood work and I was healed. And then I get a phone call from the Abortion Survivors Network, and I speak with someone, and I wasn't 100% upfront that I'm here processing all this stuff, but I don't know. I guess there was some shame that I was dealing with. And I spoke with Robin Sertel, and she just blew my mind. And then she says, there's this retreat happening at the end of the month, and you're welcome to join us. I told my husband, and my husband's like, you are there. You are going. There's no excuse. And you are right. There was a lot being poured on me at that time, and it was extremely overwhelming because the community that you have established, it's a culture of its own, and there is true authentic beauty and healing within it. And I was wrestling with a few of my own things. I was wrestling with the healing, the realization that, wow, this is true. My mom really tried, which I knew all along because of our relationship. And then I was wrestling with my own convictions. And this was something I had to repent on. And it was like the Lord convicted me deeply because I knew that abortion wasn't for me. I knew, and I have, if I had someone in my life that was going to abort her child, and I told her, I will take this baby. So I knew that I would help those ladies around me. But I was on the fence because I felt a sense of loyalty to my mother. I felt a sense of loyalty to my friends who had abortions, and it was like I was in a fork in the road, and going to the retreat showed me that you can do both. You can stand up and fight for these unborn babies, and you can also come alongside these women who have experienced abortion. So you're right. And you must have seen it in me. It was a, a storm of different things that I had to process at that moment.
Yeah, it really is a lot. And I think I mean, that's testament to who you are. And, I know that that was not the end of your process either, or the end of life, right? And the good and the bad. Life keeps happening. But I think there's something so beautiful and relatable about the piece that you talked about. And I tend to find it more often than not in survivors. I think we tend to be a bit quiet about it because I think there's a lot of preconceived notions about who we are and how we are called to live our lives or live out our convictions. And so you were a great example of, I don't want to say a gray area because it's not gray, but the fact that surviving an abortion is a complicated experience physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And when you are raised in your biological family by your mother who attempted to abort you, there is an additional layer of complication because you know that person very intimately, right? Good, bad, and otherwise. Every parent, every person is human. So my kids grow up knowing my what my issues are as well. But I think that's one of those things that people, and until women and men speak up like you about their experience to say, hey, you know what? I knew in my heart that abortion was wrong. However, I am such a loving, forgiving person that I don't know how I communicate this or live that out because I simply want people to know they are loved and forgiven and supported, right? That is a particular gift that people like you bring to the world and the pro-life movement. So what maybe felt like it was this storm inside you for so long that you were wrestling with is ultimately this great gift to us all. Can I ask you kind of a deep question? Because I think my listeners would have this particular question so far. Every survivor finds out their story in a different way and in a different time. And certainly being raised in your biological family, it comes out differently than it does, say, in an adoptive family. And, interestingly enough, I mean, you'll appreciate this. We have a very young survivor that I was just notified in the last 24 hours about. So birth mom, right? Mom is raising this kiddo, and this mom is starting to share her story publicly. And so our team has been working with her to help her know how to have this conversation. And so this kiddo is, in elementary school, sort of like you were when you found out your story. But I don't even want to say I know his experience is going to be different. His response is going to be very similar because when we hear those words or that news, it bumps up against our identity about our self-worth, right? Whether we are loved, lovable, all those things. But his mom is equipped to have that conversation. How did you find out in elementary school? Because I think people are going to have that question.
Right. My stepfather was not, he was extremely abusive. And I think he told me to be hurtful and controlling. so he did tell me when I was quite young, and I did hear it throughout the years. And my mother and I never had that connection. This is what I'm finding, Melissa, is that hearing the news that you were aborted or someone tried to abort you is not quite surprising, because you already in your soul there's a spiritual, there's like a death, or it's hard to explain, but I know abortion survivors understand this feeling. So it's almost like that explains it. That explains it. That explains why I have felt this way. I remember once my aunt got me by the shoulders, turned me around, and put me in front of my mother and said, "Something is not right with this child. Like, she is," she used the word something similar, like she's dead. Something's not right. And there's this sense of numbness. And oftentimes that culture of death, because that is abortion. Abortion is a culture of death. That followed me throughout my life. Many times I tried taking my life, and it's been a stronghold over my life. And I couldn't understand why, but it was like a seed that was planted in the womb. So yes, I found out by my father, and my mother and I were not very close. And in my 30s, we had, it was typical for us to disagree and spat because of our own brokenness. There was this wedge between us. It was her shame in what she tried doing. She did have a successful abortion before she aborted me. And then apparently, thank God that it wasn't successful with when she tried with me. So we had this wedge between us, and it was in my late 30s when I confronted her, and she did tell me all about it. And I also heard it from numerous people in my family. An older sister that witnessed her at one point falling down the stairs. And I didn't grow up with my biological father, and I found him I was about 40. And again, he confirmed the same story. So initially I heard it as a little girl, and then throughout my life, I received this information.
And it's a lot to deal with. It's a lot to deal with if you're 40. It's a lot to deal with if you're 14. It's an awful lot to deal with when you're 6 years old. If you could give a word of advice maybe to that mom that we're working with, or that little young survivor who is probably going to find out his story even now as you and I are speaking, Solé, what would you say to that mom, and what would you say to that young survivor? And take your time, because this is very off the
Yes,
cuff for me to ask you this.
it's definitely deep. And as I shared a few minutes ago, that young survivor knows there's something in that little life, in that soul, that already knows that that they have been rejected. And what the truth always sets us free. The truth will set this young survivor free, and the truth will also set the parent free. And I truly believe that if we can come alongside and present the truth with love and support, I truly believe there's hope. There's always hope. Isn't there always hope? There's always hope whenever we expose the evil. There's always hope, because we enter those things lovingly and with compassion. And again, the truth will always set someone free.
And I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, because this is just me sort of making an assumption based on past experiences with people. But, the missing link for you and your mom was not that the two of you were at odds with each other. You were not your mother's nemesis. She was not yours. the issue was abortion and what it did to her in the first place, right? That built up walls of trauma with her and led her to make then continued decisions in her life that impacted you and I'm sure everyone in your family in some way, shape, or form. And then it was, right, shame and guilt and fear and all of those things. And so the missing link in your family was healing, support, truthfulness, like you're talking about, right? Bringing things to light. If things are dealt with in an age appropriate way and they're built out of love and forgiveness and honesty, not only is there hope, but there's a chance for better outcomes very quickly.
Yes, 100%. Definitely, abortion hurts. It hurts the mother. It takes a life, but the after effects is what causes that pain in the relationships. And without a doubt, it was shame. I remember as a teenager, my mother told me never to have an abortion. She's like, whatever happens, whatever you do, never have an abortion. And sadly enough, I'm thinking within a month, I had a friend who had an abortion. And in the middle of the night, she hemorrhaged and her mother had to call the ambulance. They had to rush her to the hospital. The mother had no clue. And it was like almost instinctively, my mother was telling me, don't go there. It's not a good place. And she had been living in that shame, which rightfully so, it kept that wedge between us. I'm just thankful that healing is possible when you're willing to take a look at the pain and you're willing to unpack that pain and reconcile with others. Healing is definitely possible. Unfortunately, abortion tends to be it's a hard one. It's such a tough topic, and that's why for many years I was on the fence. It's a hard one. I'm learning that I have learned at the retreat that we definitely need to do both. We need to fight for these babies. We need to fight for life, but we also need to meet these women in their pain as well. And because I saw the pain in my mother when we talked about it, and I'm thankful that I never had to make that decision. I'm just so thankful that I was never put in that situation.
I think one of the coolest things that I have been able to watch from sort of the sidelines. I'm never really on the sideline. I like it on the sidelines, but I'm usually somewhere involved in things. But I think for me personally, getting to see you, first of all, you've established great connections with other survivors. That always brings me great joy. But you very courageously and deliberately kind of have stepped out of your own comfort zone time and time again. And you've gone to events that have sort of broadened your horizon about what it means to be pro-life. And you are someone, I relate to you in so many different ways, but I think you have challenged yourself in ways that have changed you. So I'm wondering if you would be willing to talk about what that's looked like in your life, whether it's, writing your books, right, integrating your journey with health. I think your openness is one of your greatest gifts, if that makes any sense.
Thank you, Melissa. Well, you know what I'm learning? The older I get, the less I know. And if I can maintain that attitude, that's really followed by humility. And when I went last year, I went to the March for Life in Washington, D.C., and that absolutely opened my world, as you said. It blessed my heart to see so many young adults at this event. It blessed my heart to see women my age, men my age. It blessed my heart to see even more mature people there. The support that the pro-life community has is incredible. I think that there is a lack of knowledge out there. There's ignorance. We do know that we fight against evil, but these events definitely change lives. It did for me, and I was already in. So that definitely opened up my world. The friends that I've made through the Abortion Survivors Network has been incredible. I remember opening up about my story for the first time in that community, and being able to be with people that resonate with me, that understood the secret that I kept my whole life. That definitely opened my world. Knowing that you're not alone, and that's we believe this lie that we're alone in our pain. We believe this lie that we're alone in our secrets. The truth is, no one is ever alone. There are other people that have had similar situations, that our stories have similar threads to them that we can connect. And yes, I was working on a book, and when I went to the retreat, I knew that I had to write my life story. The book of my mother and her struggles, my struggle, our reconciliation, a story of forgiveness, a story of how God healed my autoimmune disease, how he protected me in the womb, and the beautiful vision that he gave me, how his hands were right there just keeping me from becoming aborted, fully aborted. It has been a journey. These last 5 years have definitely been a journey of humility and just knowing how little I really know in life.
What's the name of your book, Solé, and what else are you working on?
The name of my book is After Some Time, and it's connecting with women through real life stories. So it's these stories that we share, how you started today. Everyone has a story. And in my book, I talk about my mother's story, my story, and yet I also sprinkle it with stories of friends of mine that their stories are a little bit like mine, but our pain, our experiences, we kind of like feel the same. So it's a similar journey, but my book definitely connects women. You can read the book and know that you're not alone in whatever struggle you're going through, whether it's abortion, whether it's substance abuse, domestic violence, or even suicide ideations. I talk about a little bit of everything, just so that the reader knows that no matter what you're going through, you are not alone.
And I'm so glad that that's the piece that you're highlighting, because I think you're so right. That's the human condition. You know, we all suffer, and I think the enemy loves for us to sit in that place of utter desperation and pain, right? Thinking I should never tell anybody the secret. Right? I'm already unworthy. I'm already abandoned. I'm already rejected. Right? I don't fit in. Nobody wants to hear this. Right? All of those things. When in fact, when we kind of just like step our toe over that line that little bit to say, you know, I'm going to whisper my story to one other person, or maybe today I can't take my full experience off the shelf that I've put it on, but, you know, maybe I can just glance at it today and I can acknowledge that it's still there, right? And each day then I'm going to take another step to figure out how I'm going to unpack that a bit. That connection occurs, the connection with who we're created to be, our connection with God, and our connection with other people. And I love that is such a heart of who you are. You know, if somebody had to ask me, right, who is Solé and what do you know about her? And it makes me emotional because you are more than what happened to you in the womb. But that experience is a part of who you are. And it can become something incredibly beautiful. It's not the way it was ever supposed to be. but you have turned it into something of great purpose.
Thank you. I think those who suffer deeply also love deeply. I remember I have the gift of empathy, which I used to call it a curse. In that, growing up, no one in my family understood it. And I definitely thought something was wrong with me, but I can see now how God uses this gift. And just with everything that I have been through, I can be more open with others and more authentic and truly enter into their pain with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's the greatest battle for survivors in general, but certainly for survivors who are high in empathy like you and I, right? We sort of wrestle with, I know that my story is important and sharing it is right purposeful and can bring great transformation in people's lives and our culture. But because I am so empathetic, I don't know how to walk this out with grace and love. And I can't even remember who I was talking to about this recently. And it wasn't even related to the abortion issue, but I remember talking to a friend about something that they're going through. And I simply said, you cannot control the way people are going to respond to what you have to say or the actions that you take. All you can do is, plot out with mercy and grace what you're saying and how you're doing it. And then you've got to be willing to do and say what you're called to do and know you can't control the response.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Absolutely. Yeah. At the end of the day, we're accountable to ourselves. And at the end of our life, we are face to face with our Savior. And no one else will be there to defend us. No one else, we don't have to account to anyone else, but just to Him, the way we live our lives and what we say and do, right?
Mm-hmm. What would you say to a woman right now, maybe, who is contemplating abortion, right? She's going through the thick of things, just like your mom was going through in her life, and those abortion pills in her hand.
Yeah. Melissa, I think about the many years during my teen years when I contemplated suicide because I could not, hope was nowhere to be seen. I couldn't even see tomorrow. And I had a friend that told me, just hold on. Life will get better. Just hold on. Like, you don't know what the future holds. And I think this still falls true for someone that's contemplating abortion. Just hold on. Don't take those pills. Things can change. You have support. Right now, there's so many resources that a woman can hold on to. The thing is that the pills is a temporary fix. It's definitely a temporary fix. The pain that someone will have to endure is a lifetime. So I would say the same thing that my friend told me, just hold on, just push through it, you will get through it.
And you're not alone.
Definitely not alone.
So beautiful. If folks want to find your book or find out more about, what you're working on, because you're really well-rounded, okay? You're humble, and so I'm going to say things for you on your behalf, which is you have a lot of experience, you have a great heart, and you are doing great things to connect other women and help heal them. So whether it's your background, in emotional healing, your way around nutrition and how to heal your body, right? That's one of those things that I love about you is I can relate to what it's like to have to figure out how to make your body work after it has gone through some stuff. So how do people find out more about getting your book or groups, things like that you're doing, Solé?
Right. Right now, it's interesting. I'm facilitating a grief group, Biblical Lamenting, which is so beautiful. So the way to find me is on my website. It's www.solewright.com. That's the best place to get a hold of me. And there's different You can get my book through my website. My book is available through Amazon, also wherever books are sold. So yeah, my website would be the best place for someone to get a hold of me.
And the spelling SOLEWRIGHT.com.
Correct.
That's a good challenge for me and my brain today. Well, Solé, again, I just want to thank you for being who you are, for being a part of the survivor community, and for being willing to share so vulnerably today. It does make a difference.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for all that you do. You have made a difference. You've made a difference in my life, and I know many, many hundreds of lives. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that. And I just want to thank the audience again for tuning in to this episode of Life Beyond Abortion. I hope that you have been touched by what Solé has so courageously shared. Do please get in touch with Solé to learn more about what she's working on. Look through her book. Also, if you're a survivor or a mother or another family member who's been impacted by abortion and you could relate to those dynamics that Solé was talking about in her family, reach out to us at the Abortion Survivors Network. That's part of what we're here for. Be sure to share this episode with other people and continue to follow all episodes of Life Beyond Abortion.
Life Beyond Abortion is a podcast presentation of the Herzog Foundation. The views and opinions on the show are those of the host and her guest, and not necessarily those of the Herzog Foundation. You can find out more about Melissa's work at melissaohden.com or by following her on Instagram at melissaohden. Be sure to like and subscribe to the show so that you never miss an episode of Life Beyond Abortion.